Good day from New York. We are coming to you with breaking news from the White House, where a major shakeup has occurred. Steve Bannon, President Trump's controversial chief strategist and former chairman of both the Trump campaign and Breitbart News, is now out at the White House. Just the latest high-profile departure for the Trump administration. NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker is in Bedminster, New Jersey, where President Trump continues his working vacation. Not such a big surprise.
Not a surprise, Harry. It has long been thought that Steve Bannon could be on the chopping block. Remember, he has been a lightning rod since the first day that President Trump announced he was going to serve as his chief strategist. He's a former top executive at Breitbart News, linked to the alt-right, the far-right conservative branch of the Republican Party. A lot of establishment Republicans told President Trump at the time that he shouldn't appoint Bannon to such a high-profile role. But he's really someone who was a touchstone to President Trump's base, to all of those people who got President Trump elected. However, the calls for him to go have grown a lot louder in the wake of Charlottesville. There was a sense that the mixed messaging that we heard from President Trump, the fact that he compared white supremacists to some of those counter-protesters, may have had echoes of Steve Bannon's very philosophy. Now, important to point out, in recent days, Steve Bannon has granted a number of interviews in which he made it very clear he thinks that it's important to stomp out white supremacists, KKK members. He said essentially that they're a bunch of clowns, but nonetheless, the damage was already done. And you had a number of Republicans not only denouncing President Trump, but saying in order to stem the bleeding, he needs to get rid of Steve Bannon. This is something that could potentially anger President Trump's base, but it's something that could help repair his relationship with a number of members of his own party, GOP lawmakers, who have been very critical of this president in recent days. And of course, if there is a big breach with the president and his own party, that could stand in the way of his legislative agenda, things like tax reform and infrastructure reform. Harry.
Can I speculate a little bit about this? Because you have a relatively new chief of staff who has said this is how this White House is supposed to work. We're talking about former Marine, well, never a former Marine, but Marine General John Kelly, that in this White House, there would not really be room for a Steve Bannon.
General John Kelly made it very clear from day one that he is someone who needs to have a chain of command, that he wanted everyone to essentially be reporting to him. Now, Steve Bannon initially said that he was prepared to do that, but Steve Bannon is also someone who very much has his own philosophy, his own ideology, his own set of policy goals, and that may have run counter to John Kelly's sense of how this White House should be ordered and how to streamline operations. He wanted there to be a more disciplined message coming out of this White House, and in recent days, of course, we've seen Steve Bannon really break with that in some of these interviews that he conducted. So there's no doubt that this bears all of the hallmarks of this new chief of staff, John Kelly, who is now in position. Also important to point out, Harry, this is all unfolding as President Trump right now is meeting with the vice president, as well as members of his national security team, discussing the way forward on Afghanistan. And a notable absence was Steve Bannon. Usually Steve Bannon would be at the table. He's not at the table right now. That was a clear indication starting this day that he could be on the chopping block. And now it turns out that is what has happened. Harry.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.